this is Chris the Nightmare Ariola, and you're watching Mission Boxing Today on YouTube.
Heavyweight boxing fans, what's the deal?
I've done the 1990s top 5 heavyweights of all time. I gave my honorable mention. So now I'm back with the 80s top 10 heavyweights of all time. I'm going to have a high honorable mention list. So I'm going to start with the honorable mention list. I'm not going to have Evander Holyfield in my top 10 of the 80s. I know he was 5-0 in the decade. I know some people may have him in the top 10 just based on his skill, him being a champion, undisputed champion at cruiserweight to move up to heavyweight. But he only had 5 fights in the division: James Quick Tillis, Pinklon Thomas, Michael Dokes, Rodriguez, Alex Stewart. Good fights, good showing, but I don't have him in my top 10. Also, I do not have Carl Williams, but I have him honorable mention. Tony Tubbs, Bone Crusher Smith. If you want to throw a guy like, Johnny Duploy in there, or Foreman, or, somebody like that. Spinks, Michael Spinks, I don't have him in the list either. So I'm going to go right into my top 10. All right, at number 10, I got Trevor Berbick coming in at number 10. He has wins over John Tate, Greg Page, David Bay, Pinklon Thomas, and over the hill Ali. One thing I will say is I'm only counting what these guys did from 1980 to 1989. So if they did something in 79, 78, or if they did something in, 91, 90, it doesn't have any bearing on this ranking. We're just talking about what they did in the decade of the 80s. Berbick went 22-6 in the 80s. He did have, some losses when he stepped up to guys like Holmes, Snipes, Tyson, Buster Douglas, Carl Truth Williams. But 22-6, the only guy to fight Ali, Holmes, and Tyson. So I got Berbick at number 10. Number 9, I'm going to go with Greg Page. Greg Page was a guy that went 23-8 in the decade. Victories over Evangelista, Jimmy Young, who was well past his prime, Quick Tillis, Renato Snipes, Coatsy. He had many losses, to Berbick and Witherspoon and David Bay and Tubbs and Douglas and Bungner, but I thought he was a real well-schooled fighter, tried to, take after Ali, But I'm going to have Greg Page at number 9. Number 8, I'm going to go with Jerry Coatsy. He was 8-4-1 in the decade. He never got a chance to fight Holmes, never got a chance to fight Tyson. He had a disputable loss to Renato Snipes. They could have went the other way. Some of his big wins, Pinklon Thomas, a draw with Thomas, and he beat James Quick Tillis. He beat Michael Dokes. One of the top heavyweights during the 80s, throughout the 80s. Fights with Weaver and Snipes, Bruno and Page. He would lose some, he would win some. Even the ones he would lose, they were debatable. So I'm going to have Coatsy at number 8. Number 7, I'm going to go with in the 80s, he was the sensation. Kind of like how Anthony Joshua is right now, but he was a knockout sensation. I'm going to go with Frank Bruno. I'm going to have Frank Bruno checking in at number 7. Wins over Coatsy and Quick Tillis. His losses were to Tim Witherspoon and Tyson. He was 32-3 in the decade. Maybe I have him a little rated high, but I'm gonna go with him at number 7. This whole list is subjective. So, if you guys have different lists, please leave your list at the bottom. I got Frank Bruno at number 7. Number 6, I'm gonna go with this was hard, man, but at number 6, I'm gonna go Tony Tucker at number 6. Tucker, 6'5", 235-pound guy, fought out of that Crunk gym. Great skill, good technique. Some people question his heart in his big fights. His only defeat in the 80s were, the one lone loss to Tyson. He beat Douglas. I thought he was a really skilled big guy, man. If he just would have, he landed a good uppercut against Tyson, got him off his feet, rocked him. I thought he could have. If he would have just let it all hang out in that fight, who knows what happened. Maybe he would have got knocked out, but who knows what happened. He was a strong guy, good jab, good physical tools. I don't know, but I'm going to go with Tucker at number 6. All right, now we're getting into the meat and potatoes. I'm going to go with Number 5, I'm going to go with Mike Weaver. He was 13, 4, and 1 in the decade. Some of you may have him higher, you may have him lower. Weaver was he was an exciting fighter to watch. He opened the decade right up with that fight over Big John Tate, that left hook. If you guys think Roy Jones Jr. went to sleep this weekend fighting Enzo Maccarinelli, I would encourage you to go watch the Mike Weaver versus John Tate for that WBA strap. 15th round, there was like, I believe, under a minute to go. He lands a left hook and a few other follow-up punches. But after that first initial left hook landed, Tate was out of there, landed face first. Big John Tate was a good heavyweight, man. Just his chin couldn't hold up. But he was a good heavyweight. So that was a good win. The KO over Jerry Coatsy, another good win. Also knocked out Carter Troop Williams in 2 rounds. Fought to a draw with Dokes. Lon Thomas, Bone Crusher Smith, Razor Ruddock. They all had wins over Weaver during the 80s. Definitely one of the elite fighters of that decade, in my opinion. So number 5, I'm going to go with Mike Weaver. Number 4, I'm going to go with Lon Thomas. I'm going to go with Lon Thomas at number 4. He was 18, 3, and 1 in the decade. One of the best jabs of that era. One of the best jabs I've seen, period, from a big guy. He had the draw with Coatsy. He got everybody's attention with that draw. You know, then he had big wins over Witherspoon and Weaver. You know, he never had another big victory after the Weaver fight. He lost to Tyson, Holyfield, and Berbick. But he was 18, 3, and 1 in the decade. A highly skilled heavyweight with a good jab. I like Lon Thomas. I'm going to go with Thomas at number 4. At number 3, I'm going to go with my man, Tim Witherspoon. I'm going to go with Witherspoon at number 3. You know, 6'3", fought around about 2. He fought in the teens, 218, 217. Had that fight with Larry Holmes, and I'm a huge Larry Holmes fan, but I think Witherspoon probably squeaked that one out against Holmes. Holmes has some tough fights down the stretch of his career with Witherspoon and Williams. Even Bay had a few little moments in that fight. But Witherspoon was very talented, man. The split decision loss. It was a split decision loss to Holmes. Victories over Quick Tillis, Ronaldo Snipes, and Page, and Frank Bruno, and Tony Tubbs. You know, 2 of his 3 defeats were to top heavyweights. You know, Holmes and Lon Thomas. Then he had the first round knockout loss to Bone Crusher Smith. His only real blemish, but he beat Smith the first time. You know, I don't want to use excuses. He was saying he was going through issues with Don King, and he didn't come into that fight with the right state of mind. But one of the guys he lost to, did he actually beat? You know, he came back, or he beat him the first time. So 1-1 with one of the guys that he lost to, Bone Crusher Smith. The top 2 positions, I mean, pretty easy. I'm gonna go with Larry Holmes at number 2, the Eastern Assassin. He was 16-3 in the decade. The 2 losses to Spinks, the loss to Tyson. I thought he won the first Spinks fight. Some people thought he won the second. Some people thought, just like the judges, he lost both fights. But I'm gonna go with Spinks at number 2, 16-3 in the decade. He fought a lot of undefeated fighters in the early 80s. You know, Spinks, Tyson, Carter Troop Williams, Cooney, David Bay, Ronaldo Snipes, Big Bad Leroy Jones. He fought all those guys when they were undefeated. He beat them. He struggled with some of them, but he won. You know what I mean? Really not much else to say about the Eastern Assassin, man. You can argue that he was probably better and more in his prime. You want to say probably the late 70s, 79, maybe 80, 81, somewhere in there, 82. But I'm going to go with Larry Holmes at number 2. And number 1, without a question, without a doubt, 36-0 in the decade, Mike Tyson. I mean, he beat who's who list: Trevor Berbick, Bone Crusher Smith, Tony Tucker, Lon Thomas, Biggs, Holmes, Tubbs, Spinks, Bruno, Williams. So really not much debate, in my opinion, about who was the best heavyweight of the 80s. I'm going to go with Mike Tyson. To me, it's more of a debate if you want to go 3 through 10. I think 1 and 2 is pretty much solidified with Holmes and Iron Mike Tyson. So I'm going to go Mike Tyson, number 1 of the 80s. So
Definitely Mike Tyson's decade. You know, 20 years old, he was a champion. Shit, he turned pro in 85. By, 87? He was the undisputed champion by 87, I believe. He beat Tucker. He beat Bone Crusher Smith. Beat Trevor Berbick. And then to put the cherry on top in 88, just, for those that were in doubt, because, Michael Spinks had the lineage. He beat Larry Holmes twice, but then Spinks opted not to participate in that HBO tournament that Don King had with the heavyweights. He was still looked at as the lineal champion. Although Mike Tyson was the baddest man on the planet, had his punch-out video game, Mike was like the Liston, Foreman, Dempsey, type of fighter of the 80s. And just for the doubters that thought, hey, Michael Spinks is the real champion, he has the lineage. We've seen what Mike did to Michael Spinks, demolishing him in 91 seconds. And Michael Spinks, to his credit, man, was a damn good light heavyweight. He doesn't really get props for that. A lot of people just kind of remember him from getting steamrolled by Mike Tyson, but he was a damn good light heavyweight. He went right from light heavyweight to heavyweight when he fought Larry Holmes and Cooney and Tankstead and Mike Tyson. I think he deserves a little bit more credit, but Mike Tyson's decade by far. You guys let me know what you think in the comment section, man. I'm out.